Welcome to Your Cyber Path, the podcast that helps you get your dream cybersecurity job by sharing the secrets of experienced hiring managers and top cybersecurity professionals with you. Now, on to the show.
So, Kip, thanks for joining us. How can you prevent a denial of service attack from being successful against an e-commerce website like diontraining.com? What would you do?
Honestly, I would outsource that. I would probably buy a subscription to Cloudflare, and yeah, they could worry about that.
That is such a CIO answer. See, audience, this is what I'm talking about when we talk about technical versus C-suite, right? Yeah.
It's too tough, man. It's too tough.
You're not wrong, right?
My toes are aching just thinking about it.
Yeah. So yeah, denial of service is a hard one, right?
It's
so I agree.
hard.
You can outsource this to something like Cloudflare or Akamai, and that's a good answer. But at the end of the day, what are they doing from a technical perspective? So, I'll cover that. I'm not going to, make you jump through hoops right now, Kip. I'll be
good.
So
all right, I'll just take it up to me and I'll listen to you.
Yeah. So, how would I prevent a denial of service attack from being successful against an e-commerce website? Well, I would use something like Cloudflare or Akamai, as Kip said. That's a good thing to use. Both of those have the ability to do denial of service protections for you. But how do they do them? Well, the way they do this is either by using black holing, or they use redundancy, or they use scaling in a cloud infrastructure to be able to overcome the attack. When we talk about black holing, if you see a bunch of bad traffic coming at you, such as the denial of service from a certain IP or IP address range, they can identify that and then block those ranges by sending them to the null interface on their router. So essentially, if you're using a service like Akamai or Cloudflare, all the traffic goes from the web to them and them to your web server. And so if they start seeing a bunch of DDoS traffic, distributed denial of service traffic, they can then block those and simply route them to the null interface, and it goes away and you don't see it at all. So that's
wait a minute. What's a null interface? That sounds
so a null interface.
Mathematical.
Yeah, so a null interface is it's actually called the /null is the interface in a router. Inside of Cisco routers, you can basically route your traffic wherever you want. And each interface has a name like ETH0, ETH1 for Ethernet 0, Ethernet 1. One of those is called null, which is essentially just a garbage can. And we call it a black hole because literally there's nothing there listening. When you send stuff there, it just goes away. It's gone. Right? So it's like, when you're driving down the street and you want to get rid of that stinky thing in your car, you just throw it out the window. No, don't do that. That's bad. That would be a null interface. Just throw it out the window and it disappears, right? No, don't do that. That's what we're talking about with black holing and a null interface.
Right. Or sometimes we call it the bit bucket.
The bit bucket. Yes. Another way you do this is redundancy, right? So as an organization, we can have redundant systems. So if I have multiple servers, for instance, let's say I have 5 servers and one of them is becoming overloaded, well, I could share the load across the other 4, and that way they could pick up the slack. And so you can, if you're having a DoS, a denial of service against a single server, redundancy can help you with that. But if you're doing a DDoS, a distributed denial of service, that's not going to solve it because they're going to be able to overcome 5 servers pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And this brings us to what a lot of people do in the cloud world, which is we will just try to scale up or scale out in order to outlast the attack. And that's what a lot of these cloud providers will do for you as well. Things like Cloudflare and Akamai, as well as Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. They all have their cloud services. And so if I'm running my servers on there, all my servers are set up in an elastic cloud configuration, which means that if I have a single server and I have 10 people using it, and now I have 20 people, I'll actually spin up a second server and I'll put 10 on each server. If I have more people, I'll spin up a third server. Now I have 10, 10, and 10. And I can keep doing that as much as I need to. So because I have infinite scalability, essentially using something like AWS, I can scale outward as much as I need or upward by getting more resources. There's a problem with doing this though, and that's that it costs you a lot of money because all this cloud time doesn't come free. So if I spin up one server, maybe that's $5 a month. If I spin up 2 servers, it's $10 a month. If I spin up, 500 servers, it's $5,000 a month, whatever it happens to be, right? And so if I have to spin up all these servers to take on this additional load, and that load is not generating any useful business purpose for me, because it's not my students trying to access my site, it's some random DDoS attack, right? I'm spinning up these servers and I will outlast that attack at some point, but I'm spending a lot of money on compute and network time to be able to service this non-usable data.
Right.
And so from a DDoS protection perspective, it will work because I can outlast them, hopefully. But I will run up big bills doing it. And so generally I prefer black holing over using scaling up or scaling out. Although all these things can work in tandem if you configure it properly to be able to outlast these DDoS attacks.
And every now and then we hear about like these enormous distributed denial of service attacks with like these peak terabit per second attacks where there's a botnet, right? That's hurling traffic at this website. And Mirai was a big one a few years ago. And
there's 3.4 terabytes, I think, or something like that per second. It was tremendously huge.
Yeah, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And so, I mean, yeah, I was being a little silly about outsourcing, but really, I think you've made the technical case that the size of denial of service attacks that we can produce today could quickly overwhelm anybody's ability to deal with it, except for these organizations that are specifically dedicated to deal with it.
Exactly. And for that reason, I think that it's a great way of going.